Hello. Today we got 223 Remington versus 556 M193. Both 55 grains. Coincidentally, on our 223 Remington right here, stated 3,240 feet a second advertised velocity. On our M193 556, claimed velocity is 3,180 feet a second. Not 100% certain, but I believe that deals with the barrel length difference, where 556 typically 20-inch barrel and 223 more of a varmint. You're looking at 24-inch from a bolt action. Don't quote me on that. That's just from what I read and tried to put the puzzle pieces together. Both of these $14.99. No price difference, but probably thinking to yourself, if you watch my channel, you're like, hey, didn't you already do a video about this? Yeah, in fact I did. That's where today gets special, though if you read the title of the video, now this comes no shocker to you. What we got up on top right there is a 16-inch upper, and as you can see now, right there, we have a 20-inch upper. So, what we're doing is we're going to compare this. Excuse the little tripod fart vibration sounds. 223 in this magazine. If autofocus is enabled, you'll be able to read that. And on our right side, it's M193 556. Autofocus focused on that. Good job. If not, screw you, autofocus. What we're going to do, I got the lab radar set up, and we're merely going to run these over 3 shots at a time. 223 556, 16-inch barrel, 223 556, 20-inch barrel. We'll compare any velocity difference, potential drag coefficient differences, which comes in relation to velocity, extreme spread, things to note. 16-inch carbide length gas system versus the 20 with a rifle gas system. I'll be running a brass catcher, so I won't exactly be able to tell you based on where the brass ejects to, but I'll go by feel. Granted, the 20-inch, weighs a little bit more, so it's not foolproof. I'll do the best for how the gas feels. I can already tell you, full length, the rifle length gas system, it's going to be smoother running than our carbine length. Yeah. Let's just get to the chronograph numbers. Alright, camera's up and running. Chronograph's hot. This is, right now won't focus, magazine 223, 20-inch barrel. And let's just go and see what kind of muzzle velocity we get out of this. Alright, 3 rounds, chamber's clear. Shut the chronograph off. Got a weaker result there on our last one. And let's go find out what our average was. Average 3,132 feet a second. So is that 3,240, 80 feet a second slower than what's claimed on the box. This is 223 55 grain. High 3,188 feet a second with a low of 3,071. Extreme spread of 117. standard deviation of 58.6, 3 shots. Okay. Next, 5.56, right there, shown. Again, we're going to run 3 rounds of this. .32-40, .32-24, .32-32. So what we can tell from that, M193 does exceed advertised velocity from a 20-inch barrel. Just to show, that way we're at no cuts here. Let me zoom out. This is right there, a 20-inch barrel upper. Let's go see what our average was with this. That means zooming back in. Do. Okay. See if that comes off real quick. And bolts locked, magazine's empty. We are clear. Close that. And the safety's on. Average 3,212, a high of 3,240 with a low of 3,224. An extreme spread of 16, standard deviation of 8. So in a 20-inch barrel, 5.56, definitely won over Winchester White Box 223. I'm going to go break this down, put on our 16-inch upper, and we're going to go do the same test. Alright, camera's rolling. 223, again, same thing, 3 rounds. This is out of our 16-inch upper. Chronograph's hot. So it's closed. Just make sure I wiggle myself in. Right. And let's rock some. 29.55. 29.38. 29.60. Rung my little 4-inch plate down there too. Alright. The last one I actually aimed for that. Let's stop that. Alright, there we go. Camera's posting. And it is readable. I guess should show you. M193 5.56. Get that in, both still locked back. Average 2,951 feet a second, a high of 2,960, a low 2,938, extreme spread of 23, standard deviation of 11.8. Out of the 16-inch barrel, Winchester White Box 223, much tighter numbers ran across the board. It's either the chronograph didn't pick up right on the 20-inch, or the 20-inch was throwing some funkiness down. Don't quite know. And here we go. Again, same thing. This is 55 grain M193 5.56. And then brake set up with the lab radar, and let's send. 3056, 3027, 3059. Bolt lug back, magazine is empty. Right. Average 3,047 feet a second, a high of 3,059, a low of 3,027 feet a second, extreme spread of 32, standard deviation 17.5, 3 shots registered naturally. Look at my rolled magazine right there. I'm going to go read over these numbers and we'll get the number crunching. Already up and running. That's going to make for one long video. 20-inch upper, 3 rounds, 55 grain, 223. I'm going to go slap it. Hopefully these 3 rounds get through, because if not, I'm going to pull this camera back down. Bolt lock there. Okay. That was anticlimactic. Alright. Four. Took 4 rounds. Yeah. Alright, look at that neat little pinhole. Alright, so back at the table, what you're seeing right here is our 20 inch and our 16. So we see, yeah, versus our 20, which I thought it was a nick, but if we position the jug, which it's fighting me now, but if we just pretend that the jug was put back together, you can see a very clear hole, well, what would have been a projectile. On the rear side, we have some small bits of fragment pass through. Split the bottom. Compared to our 16 incher, which, same thing actually, we have a fragment here on the left side facing the camera, and a fragment at the back, the tear, another tear at the handle, and I didn't start to mutilate this back in the shape. Matter of fact, I don't know if I can do that. Oh yeah, we can. That's sharp. Don't get your hand caught in that. But anyways, while I'm working on this, let me at least be productive. So reading up our velocities here from earlier is our 16 inch with the 223, 55 grain 223. We averaged 2,951 feet a second. Which actually it isn't all that bad. We're pretty close to 3,000 feet a second. We'll take that. Out of our 20 inch barrel, 55 grain 223, we got 3,122 feet a second. That's about 171 feet a second more than the 16 inch barrel. So we definitely saw some gains in velocity. Yeah, there we go. We got this thing put back together. You can very clearly kind of know one of those got to be the hole. So if we just put our jug back together, something like that. It's a bit of a mishap. Thinking that would have been our projectile entrance right there, and everything else just kind of ripped apart away. And what surprised me, may have surprised you, is despite the fact that it's 171 feet per second faster, we're at the range of about a little over 60 yards a second difference. 63.3 yards a second. And I'm shooting these here at 25 yards. So if we just simply take that down in the claim, we're at around 2,750 feet a second on impact with our 16 inch barrel, and 2,930 feet a second on impact out of our 20 inch barrel. Our 20 inch barrel on impact is just shy 20 feet a second less than what our 16's producing at muzzle. But the 16 penetrated in 3, and when it did penetrate, that was a much more intact projectile just looking at the jug. This is going into where I thought that our 20 inch only nicked the jug, but when you put it all back together, you could very clearly see a circle as where our little 55 grain projectile went through. It lost a lot more steam, and it took an extra shot. It took 4 compared to our 16 inch barrel, which only took 3, and when that third one went through, that third one went through. This kind of counterintuitive from what I'm understanding. I'm trying to explain this a little bit, but being that cement cinder blocks are a rather fairly hard material, lead is a rather soft material. Once you get that lead going so fast and it hits something hard like that, it just wants to spall. It wants to shatter, turn into powder. And I think what we saw is that extra 170 feet a second difference in speed on impact. Our 20-inch barrel that was going faster, 2,930 feet a second on impact, was too fast for the jacketing to hold it together as it tried to pass through those walls of the cinder block. Which kind of does make sense if you've ever shot any high velocity lead projectiles into water. You'll notice that they break apart. They don't penetrate water all too good. That's why I'm personally not a big fan of doing the milk jug test, but milk jugs do have their purpose, that they are repeatable. Just doesn't show you the trueness of what would happen in, say, softer, squishier materials. This kind of testing, milk jugs are absolutely okay, and as long as you're comparing high velocity to high velocity, if you keep all the variables the same, milk jug testing, no issues out there. I'll stand by that. It's perfectly fine. It does have its flaws though. 16-inch barrel, 2,951 feet a second out of the muzzle, and we're coming in at 2,750 on impact. I think that's just pushing the borderline of where it's slowed down enough to keep that lead inside of the jacketing. I'll have to do another attempt in the future. I'll either pump up my weight. I'll try and find, I don't want to do M855 since that does have mild steel. So I'll try and find like a 62 grain full metal jacket, 77 grain, somewhere in that ballpark. Thing I did forget to mention that I'll mention now is barrel twist rate. Our 16-inch is a 1 in 8, where our 20-inch barrel is a 1 in 9. Slight difference in twist. I didn't math it out to see which one's actually spinning faster. I think our 16-inch barrel does have the higher RPM. Didn't quite math that out yet. I'll have to go and check on that, see if I'm wrong or not, but I believe it does. Anyways, sometime in the future, I'll have to look back at this either further away, let these rounds slow down a little bit more, see if there's kind of like a curve where once they become too slow, they stop penetrating. 25 yards is a rather short distance. I did want to shoot these out at 100. My thinking is I couldn't get them to group close enough to each other. These are not minute of angle shooters. The 16-inch actually is. I do have video on the ATN scope with that. It's around 1.35 MOA, which actually surprised me. But our 5.56 is nowhere near that. It's closer to 2.5, 3 minutes out of the 16-inch, and I've never grouped the 20-inch barrel, but I believe it's somewhere similar. And what I was thinking was, shot dispersion was going to be so wide, it was just going to nullify the testing. I was going to have to dump so many rounds coming into the block that the block was going to crumble before I could actually get a shot through the back. As it turned out though, 25 yards, once it's kind of like cast iron, is once you punch a hole through a cinder block, it makes a fairly big hole. And I'm actually in hindsight thinking that would have been more productive. So I'll take that one into consideration. Maybe not a full 100, maybe I'll do 50. Buy a bit more space and time in between, let my shots, instead of just trying to pinhole in the same hole. I'll just let the dispersion naturally take effect on it. But I'm thinking doing some other handgun testing, 9mm, 45. Look at the difference between 115 grain, 124, 147. Some 308 coming out into the future, how M80 ball performs, doing those kind of comparisons. Okay. Anyways, thank you guys for watching today's video. Hopefully you guys found this interesting, learned something. I know that I did. It was pretty cool. Definitely, I thought the 20-inch barrel was going to penetrate first. I did not have my thoughts on the 16. Hindsight does make sense, but so yeah, you're always able to learn something new. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.